Hello and welcome everybody. I'm Phil Rice. This is Thread to Threshold on this Friday, 23rd October here in New Zealand. And our special guest today is the one and only Dr. Richard Alan Miller. I just want to say a big thank you to everyone out there who's been supporting the show, either with just sending me encouraging messages, emails, making donations. They greatly received, guys. You know, this is a user-funded show. I do it for shits and giggles, but, you know, donations are very helpful. Just for upgrading equipment and also, putting something on the table from time to time as well. So I'm very grateful. But yeah, let's bring on Rick. And because today's topic is, if you don't know who Rick is, I've done a whole bunch of interviews with him already. So go back and check him out and make sure you check out his website, richardalanmiller.com. But Rick's we're going to focus on a topic today, Magick 101, and we're going to extrapolate on that a little bit. So without further ado, I'll just bring Rick on so we can just get chatting because I know you're all waiting. So let's get cracking. Okay, so here we go. Where are you, Rick? Hello, Rick. How are you, brother?
Good. Just like in Hawaii. Honolulu.
Awesome. Well, it's great to have you back here. And I know that you're always busy and there's lots of things going on. So I'm very grateful for your time coming on the show here. And, we've picked this topic, Magick 101. You've got some, you're sort of organizing a course at the moment to teach, and you're talking about working with young children. So, I'd really love to hear hear some bit of an overview background on what you're planning to do here.
Where does one begin? Well, you could say that our children are possibly our single most important natural resource, and that in recent times, we've been squandering that like we did logging and the need for spotted owl. To not send children back to school doesn't make any sense because that's where they get exposed to all these creepy viruses and other kinds of bacteria, scabies, mite, whatever. This is where the child builds their natural immunities in the first place. And that most of the deaths that are associated with this COVID-19, 2019 is fabricated for political and other personal gain. And when you have an organization that believes that it's okay to break the law for political gain, you now have, in my humble opinion, a crime against humanity. And I need to emphasize that the more you realize that, like what Benjamin Franklin said, when you give up your natural rights for safety, you lose both. Wearing these masks is not going to stop the flu, especially if it's being distributed with intent. It's not about people passing it on to other people by accident. It's more likely there are lockdown communities that all of a sudden have huge outbreaks. How did that happen? And you can say the same thing with computer viruses. Most everything that we say happening today, from the fires in Oregon, where I live, are mostly with intent. Why? Is that for political gain, between Democrats and Republicans? Anarchy? Anarchy. You don't throw away an old car like a Datsun 280Z because it's broken. What you do is you fix it. And so the metaphor holds across the board in almost everything. We have a broken system in America, and we're probably the worst bullies in world history, even over Rome. But we also are possibly one of the best governments ever in history. And so you don't just scrap it. What you do is try to fix it. I can tell you that both the Democratic and Republican parties have been infiltrated by, I have no idea what it is, probably aliens. When you realize that nobody is talking about nuclear power right now, it's all about this virus, that's nothing in comparison to the New Madrid fault line in the middle of the Midwest that has 21 Daiichi-like reactors that are all leaking. It takes 1 full year to power them down, and Yellowstone is being seen as far as Ohio underground. Now, how come nobody's talking about turning off these switches? You want to talk about
how come nobody's talking about all the millions of children that go missing every year?
Yeah, well, that's Dina Cronum, the concepts of the child's foreskin on his penis being used by Hollywood to make people look younger. However, simply put, the goosebumps on your arm right now is how your body is telling you how you are now creating stem cells to your sleeping state you call consciousness. And if you paid attention to that, what age do you want to be? You don't need a child to do that. You can do it with your mind's eye. And that's part of why magic is now become of interest as a subject for study in advanced physics. Physics itself does not have the answers, and I can explain that in a moment if you'd like. Neither does religion. That's why you have two brains and the concept of choice making you God's favorite. And once you grasp that concept or metaphor, it's now like in that movie, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, when she comes out on stage and sings, anything goes. Anything you could imagine as God, and what God is able to do is what man is capable of this century and is less than halfway to God if he used his full potential. None of us can, because most all of us, including me, generally come from a place of wounding. Something happened, I'm never going to date that kind of woman again. Or better, how about this one? The doctor hits me when I come out of the womb, takes me off for fingerprinting before I get to bond with mom. Oh, and chops my penis off. Circumcision. Oh, he won't remember that. And sets up a period of neurotic behavior for the rest of my life. I'm stumbling. There's a man I took a course from in Berkeley called Monday Night Class by Steve Gaskins. That's worthwhile. Steve Gaskins walked into the classroom, looked at everybody, and went to the blackboard and drew a circle on the blackboard. And he said, that may not be a perfect circle, but it's a perfect whatever it is. And what he did next was he moved to Tennessee and formed the farm, and his wife wrote a book called Spiritual Midwifery, and the way a dog is brought into this universe, well, as a litter of dogs, as opposed to, we have video. Julie just walked in the door and I'm just saying hi.
Hi, Julie.
Is it recording?
Yes, we're recording.
Hi there.
It's on national, international news.
Hi, Phil.
Hi there.
She's my better half. She and Grace act as my, what do they call it when they go to the front door and you're greeted with a shotgun? I need protection, but I'm just a young kid with no idea at all what's going on around me. In any case, magic is an art form, like sculpting or painting. It is the art of changing consciousness at will. Now, physics, the one side of your brain, one brain, starts with assumed truths. Shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Okay, if that's true, then the Earth's round. But if space is curved, I can prove that with tensor math that the Earth's flat. Now, which one is it? And the correct answer is yes, because space, like time, is a construct in man that's a limitation in our ability to conceptualize. And the example I'm going to use on that one was the difference. Hey, girls. Okay. The example I'm going to use on that one is that when I was studying under MRU, I watched how astrology became astronomy. But back then, Ostrander and Schroeder were talking about psychic discoveries behind the Iron Curtain, and Prague moved from astronomy to cosmobiology, what you today would call biorhythms. Now, Yanev had written a book called The Lunar Sex Cycle of the Female. When the female is born, there is a lock in the DNA that sets that when the moon and the earth and the sun are in a certain geometric alignment, she ovulates. Now, does that have to do with electromagnetic fields? No, it doesn't, because the study I did was the planet Uranus. From astrology, Uranus was a higher octave of Earth. And when it became astronomy, it was a planet out past Jupiter and Neptune. But what I did for the Department of Interior was that when Uranus and the Earth and the Sun were in a specific geometric alignment, a major earthquake on Earth occurred with a 3 sigma error coefficient. That means a 99.99975% probability it was going to happen. Today, we've gone back to clunk, clunk, clunk astronomy with suspicious observer suggesting that when the sun burps, it's going to cause events on the Earth and gamma rays coming in, and Uranus and that relationship, well, that's a law we don't know yet. Well, I'm going to say no, it's not a law we don't know yet. It's the laws are arbitrary and change every 20 years. And the only one of any of the laws throughout world history that has lasted longer than 20 years was Maxwell hitchhiking out of here with his right-hand rule of thumb. And so space is not real. And let me give you another example where I was wrong. 40 years ago, Carl Sagan had me go into John Lilly's labs because I do code, and they wanted me to determine whether the dolphin had a language. And I was there 10 days listening to their squeaks and cracks and whacks and you know, and like our man Flint, that's a form of Clifford algebra. Their dimensional math, their redundancy is way more better than Hebrew. Turns out that lasted for 40 years as a language concept with dolphin. And just recently I was proved wrong. Dolphin don't have a language. They're sending holograms, they're sending pictures, which means we couldn't even comprehend that concept back then. And the dolphin, that's their form of language. Now, there's a mammal that's so far more evolved than man, doesn't even need a language anymore. It uses, that's an example of what I'm trying to suggest here. No, Grace, please. Thank you. Grace, please. No, it's interference. Thank you. Please. I mean it. It's interfering with me. Okay, thank you. Well, no, they're doing cell phones and, you know, high-end technology, and it's messing with my, I can't think. So I need you to stop. The idea that we think we know everything, please go away. Move. I'm not, I need it. I need you to understand. I can't, I'm losing my tracks. Thank you. I'm sorry. This was what an important point. I hate high tech. In any case, what I was trying to say is we think we are superior to everything, and yet we're way down on the food chain. There are 4 mammals on this planet that have bigger brain cases than man. And orca can have access to 9/10 of the biosphere where man only has 1/10 access. Who's superior? And so we watch orca chase dolphin for food chain. Where's man in the scheme of all this? He's down further down on the line. And we don't see it that way because we have the thumb, we have fire, but there's something else going on here. And I don't know the answer. I know that I probably will never know the answer. It doesn't work like that because anything goes. Your imagination is reality. And physics and religion can't get you there from here because they start with assumed truths and definitions. If you had been born in Iraq, you would not be a Christian. So why does that make that religion more superior to Muslim? When in fact, I've watched Muslim, not extremes, normal Muslim religion, being far more dedicated and devoted to their behavior than Christians are. And the first tenet of Christ was not to make judgment on another, and that is what most Christians break as the first rule of their teaching. They judge others. You're only supposed to judge yourself. And so I'm going to try to say something here that as a scientist, I know that I'm not going to ever get there from that point of view. But spirit within me, like a dog closer to spirit, that's probably because of the way he was whelped and the fact that he's not coming from as many wounds as the way we're birthed. Steve Gaskins again, as a metaphor. And what is your metaphor but to serve your paradox? It's the way you go from one concept to the next and the limitation of what man is and what man is not. And once you get that, then you realize that magic, with a K, is the art of changing consciousness at will. You have stage magic, which is sleight of hand, and then you have magic with a K, which is sleight of mind, where you're using your mind as a tool, not an absolute, because reality is not physics or religion, it's the mind's eye. And that's what a child gets right out of the gate. So, is the boogeyman real? How could he not be? And what we do is teach the child it doesn't exist. Now, does it exist or does it not exist? And the correct answer, again, is yes, just like the earth being flat or round. That is the limitation of man's ability to conceptualize. Time is not real, it's a duration of consciousness. Having a cesium clock is an exercise in uselessness. We already have Einstein's paradox. So here we are at the end of days with choices. And where are you going to go? Well, I found everybody's different because, and this is a very important tool, all roads lead to Rome, but we each of us need a North Star to know what direction we're going. And once you get that concept, now that makes your artwork, your skill, different than someone else. Even using a pencil with crosshatch and stippling, everybody's different, just slightly, because we're unique. And that's why I would say there are as many different forms of religion in the world today as there are human beings. The reason you go to church is to reinforce through fellowship a certain belief system so that you hold your morals true and fine. Because you slip inside and you like to have a body of people to help you reinforce your value system. But it's important to realize that that value is arbitrary and should be used as a tool. And the example I'll use there is one of the first things I trained SEALs in is that they were a Christian and had to go into Afghanistan. They could get their team killed. And so what you do is to teach that SEAL how to take his sweater off when it's hot in the summer day. He doesn't throw the sweater away, folds it up neatly, puts it in the drawer for an appropriate time and use. And that's what beliefs are for.
Okay. Hey, I was just going to say, we've got a couple of questions in the chat here, Doc.
I'll bet. Here we go.
Okay. So the first question is, somebody here would appreciate if the doc would elaborate on a few things he said, specifically the ability to emulate compounds, I'm presuming mind alterants, with light and sound, as the man or the person on here is looking to expand his meditation. And then he said, what would you use? A function generator hooked up to what sort of light and sound source? How would you determine the correct frequency, molecular weight? And so if you could just, elaborate on that.
I got its direction. The Jesuits use a whip. Whap! Pain! And there's many roads to Rome. I did studies in video feedback systems and wrote 3 unpublished books called The Diamond Body, Electromagic, and Yogatronics. And I used German acupuncture equipment on the top of my head where I would dial in pulses and be able to actually dialogue with neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are not drugs. Drugs, LSD, dimethyltryptamine, ayahuasca, mushrooms, are toxins, basically, that have chemistries that are very similar to, but slightly different than the neurotransmitters. And when you take the toxin, the body goes and freaks out and starts the brain's own production of a similar but different chemistry called a neurotransmitter. And as we are beginning to understand, limitedly, it'll change next century, what a neurotransmitter is a kind of resonant cavity oscillator that dialogues or connects your physical body with subtle bodies outside the physical body. One of them that all of us are mostly familiar with is Chi, with this little body outside, and you can push someone across the room with your thought. What that is, in today's propositions using Hameroff and Roger Penrose, others, is structured water inside microtubules outside the body, and is primarily now the primary theory on how acupuncture works and some of the other older forms of medicine before allotropic medicine and homeopathic medicines existed. Is it real? Yes. Is it not real? Yes. Which is real? I don't know. It's, again, each of us has a different construct of what's real or not, and that is what makes it real, is your belief that it is. Therefore, one of the first primary axioms, postulates in Magick, is that man has a responsibility for the thoughts he chooses to entertain, because you create your own demons. It isn't voodoo and I'm going to put a spell on you. It's your belief in the spell that causes it to work. And if you don't believe in it, then it's like in witchcraft, where it's reflected back to you in threefold, because that's what amplitude does. When light reflects off a surface, it goes clang and goes back to the person 3 times more, because you put up a shield. How do you put up a shield? Everybody does it again differently. That's the first lesson in Magick. Before you even start anything, you set up a circle of protection, and everything inside the circle is me, and everything outside that circle is not me. How do you know which is me and not me? You visualize it. The way Dion Fortune did it with Golden Dawn is white light, wrapping it around yourself. It's all arbitrary. Everybody does it differently. That's what you do first. Ritual. Rituals are your light switch, going from the profane into the sacred. When you're going to do an act of magic, that's what Leary called set and setting. You set it all up so that you have a switch going from this place to this place. And if you do that, now you have a way to assimilate it. In Larry's form of the Bordeaux Thadal, what he called the varieties of psychedelic experience with Ullman, not Montague Ullman, who was it? It was Richard, Ram Dass and Montague. That they wrote a book that used the Bordeaux Thadal for ritual. And in that book, Leary stated that the Buddhists have 4 reasons for getting high, but only one of them was for recreation and escape. There were 3 other reasons they got high. And to use that altered state was the first protocol. I trained Navy SEALs how to think with instinct, ESP, working with the gut, the enteric nervous system. There's an altered state of consciousness, not here, but right about here. You bring your consciousness here. And if you go here, your ability in guessing can be as high as 400 times over where you are right now. And that's what an altered state does. And over here, I can be like on methamphetamine, where I'm going to have the strength of 10 and rip a car door off like a woman might during her child being in an automobile that's on fire, and she's got to save her daughter, so rip that car door off to get their daughter out. That's physically impossible. And yet, she just did it. How did she do that?
Are you there, Doc?
What's that?
I'm back. Sorry, I did something just freaked
Oh,
out.
no, that's fine. That's fine. It's okay. It's nice to see you. Hi, goodbye.
Sorry about that.
You say hello, I say hi. You say tomato, I say tomato. Hi, goodbye. That's the Yellow Submarine again. Don't worry about the Beatles. I am you, you are me, and I am the walrus.
Oh, that's good. Hey, I just wanted to say sorry about that. I'm just managing doing the production and stuff, and I was going to say we've got another couple of questions here.
I know I probably went a little further than that guy wanted on his answer, but light and sound can be used like cymatics and other kinds of sacred geometry resonating in your mind's eye to cause the release of specific neurotransmitters. You don't need to take drugs anymore. And I have a laboratory for sale. I'd like to find the right home for it, and I will train those people on how to use that laboratory to train people on how to use induced drug states just with your mind's eye. That's what Yogatronics and electromagic is about. Electromagic is the neurotransmitter talking, and Yogatronics are how you use feedback systems other than audio, video, so on. Smell, odoriferous molecules open memories, and memories are basically how you time travel.
That's why keeping a journal is so important, right?
What's that?
That's why keeping a journal is so important.
Well, that's your magical memory. That's what Crowley called your magical memory. That when you go back to something you wrote 20 years ago, it puts you right back to that moment, hologram, and you relive it. Slightly different, not quite the same, but that's your timeline concept. But that's how you go back in time with your diary. And the amount of learning of what you experienced at that moment compared to how you relate to it tonight, and the difference between the two is the personal growth that happened in you. And that's why it's called magical memory, because it alters your state of consciousness. Whenever you take a mind alterant, you are, in fact, performing an act of magic. Boom. So you have a responsibility for the thoughts you choose to entertain. You have to train your mind. And that's why all your saints in history have stressed the importance of meditation, training the mind. It's important.
Okay, here's another question for you. Can the future be accessed by remembering the future? It's on the screen there.
You mean Back to the Future? And how did Merlin put it when they stormed Luther's castle? Oh, I didn't see this. I love that movie. The Once and Future King. Yeah. Um,
So has the future
Time
already
travel.
happened almost?
what's that?
Has the future already happened in a sense?
Oh, yeah. Time isn't real. And that's why what you are, I'll say a metaphor, it doesn't mean this is exactly correct, is that you're in a video game right now. At the moment of death, there is a 5-gram weight loss in everybody. What's that? Well, I have postulated that it's structured water in a microtubule outside the physical body, your chi. Now, 5 grams of water as a memory water is 1,000,000 times, that's 6 zeros, more efficient than our computer chip that we have in our computer right now. Gallium and arsenic, gallium arsenide in that forbidden zone where you do all your checksum errors in your memory. In structured water, they call that the exclusion zone. But it's the same thing, and 1,000,000 times 5 grams is enough to hold the memory of 100,000 lifetimes as a metaphor. And so if that's true, you're in a video game right now.
Okay. So, hey,
Matrix.
I just want to add too, like, a lot of these spiritual traditions can be a lot of there's universal truths that can be boiled down once you get rid of remove the embellishments and the dogmas. I'm reading a book by Franz Barton at the moment called Initiation into
No, Franz
Hermetic.
Barton. Yes.
Yeah, it's an
He's the
excellent
one
book.
that didn't go Crowley. When Golden Dawn split, there was OTO that went in that direction, and Franz Barton went in the European direction. They both took magic into 2 different areas. Franz Barton's works are still used geometric 19th century constructs. What I'm hoping to do is take the Aleister Crowley form and move it to the next century, which has to do with archetypes and the uniqueness of individuation, and make it a tool to be used in physics like you would religion. I don't know that I'll carry that off. That's my goal. I am considered the physicist that did not blow himself up. Jack Parsons was Jet Propulsion, JPL. I am Oak Institute. And that started for Battelle and Douglas United Nuclear and Boeing back in 1974. And I've been doing Oak Incorporated, the Organization for the Advancement of Knowledge. And it has a subcategory called the Order of Ascending Kundalini. Ta-da!
There's a bit of playfulness with the letters there.
Yeah, thought I'd make you grin a little bit. I don't know where we're going. I know where I'm attempting to go. How did they put it? As one small step for man and one giant leap for mankind. I am just the first, and I'm hoping a bunch of Gen Xers get me and then evolve it into something I couldn't even comprehend. And I'm doing that now with children and educational reform. Well, I don't think it's going to be like Cloud Atlas. Mike Mandeville runs the Edgar Casey Foundation right now. He and I were roommates at the University of Washington when I came out of grad school, and before I married Iona. And he was doing a doctorate at that time called the Experimental College, which is what I did all of my paranormal studies under with MRU and SEAL Corp and all the rest of it. The Experimental College was the first program that started continuing education in all the universities around the universe. And when Dixie Lee Ray, head of the Atomic Energy Commission, retired, she became governor of the state of Washington, and her first thing was to start up Evergreen, which was an experimental college, university now, of which I was first faculty. And I taught, at that time, shamanism, from John Curtis Gowan's books using trance, art, and creative states of consciousness. Prototaxic modes were shamanistic states. Parataxic modes where there was some dream, illusionary, archetypal recounter thing. And syntactic modes of consciousness were the highest forms using sex magic, biofeedback, where you had a contextual relationship between the dream state called consciousness and reality. And in Buddhist systems, they call those jhana states, Jhanta, or cosmic states of consciousness, of which there were 8 of them, like we have physical, emotional, intellectual, archetypal, and so on. Hierarchies of the same thing, going to the next level of experience.
I'm getting a lot of questions here for you, brother.
Good, because that's what I want you to do with May when I teach Magic 101 and have all those people there, and I have immediate access, and I respond or try to respond spontaneously to their questions, because the way they ask the question at this moment will be different than next week.
So yeah, that's it. As obviously as discoveries are made, and so somebody's put a question in here. JS Pop has put so 5 grams, presuming psilocybin, is a consciousness leaving the constraints of space and time. It goes
like back to the multiverse, and maybe a physical analog to the stag and the unicorn in the forest, soul and spirit within matter. I don't know. It's a conceptual concept, measuring this weight change in everyone, and it's uniquely the same. What could that be? Soul going back to God? I don't know. I can speculate.
Oh, sorry, hang on. I thought they were talking about the 5 gram weight loss. So I thought they're talking about Terence McKenna and his 5 gram hero dose of psilocybin. I got them mixed up there.
No, yeah. That's okay. That's why I'm here to try to help clarify so they get a better grasp of what I'm really trying to say. No, do not take 5 grams of mushrooms.
We don't recommend that.
By the way, you can take 5 grams of cubensis and not get off. And if you took 5 grams of cyanescence, you could see triple gods.
Okay. All right. Here's another. You want another question?
Sure. Oh, yeah. Let's play.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Have you done any?
You smile.
What's that?
Yeah, you're having fun.
Okay. So have you done any work exposing your plants to magnetic fields? I've successfully experimented on homegrown hydroponic cannabis and want to push my knowledge and experimentation further.
Oh, well, how about playing Mozart to your marijuana? That'll work. That's what the Amish do to make a low cholesterol egg. They call it sonic bloom. That was Baxter's work in The Secret Life of Plants. What's actually happening with your electromagnetic fields was something that Terence McKenna, who was it that wrote Pyramid Power? Oh, yeah, Flanagan. Yeah, Flanagan. Flanagan found that the plants have grain migration in them. And with the magnetic fields, what they're doing is causing cell salts to migrate differently, and your nematode at the root is doing a different kind of exchange on the mineral. And so you can enhance your plants that way. I've got even better ways today. If you were to put your hemp inside an orgone box, what is an orgone box? Organic, inorganic, organic, inorganic, inorganic, alternate layers of organic, inorganic, inorganic, metal, wood, 6 times. Watch what happens to the marijuana now when exposed to the right bandwidths of light. That was an experiment I did at Boeing with Lunar Base Alpha 1 in 1968. That old, yeah, that guy. And if you want to read about that, you can go to February 1992, in High Times, Growing Pot on the Moon, an interview with Dr. Richard Allen Miller by Tom Lytle. And it talks about the work I did back in Boeing 25 years earlier, 92, 80, 89. I did it 68, so it's 92, 68, 14 years earlier, with Boeing, with Lunar Base out 22 years later, 24 years later. I did original studies on how to grow marijuana, and the one I used was Cannabis indica, which was a long ultraviolet plant from Kathmandu. They were making temple ball out of it. We brought that plant in. That's the one we did, and it mutated into what was classically known as Sammamish Slough as a cultivar. And that one was the first cultivar of many now that you can buy heirlooms from Amsterdam in Sensi Seed and the Marijuana Museum, run by Joseph Heron, good friend of mine. So there it is, a little plug for Amsterdam. What you're looking for, by the way, for seed is the bigger the seed with little dots on it, that's the one you want to germinate. And and if you use light in this bandwidth, not that one, watch what happens next with your. I have been doing that, and really, where the real money is not in medical marijuana or CBDs. It's going to be in hemp as a virgin white paper, because when you make paper out of hemp, it doesn't tear. You get 15 feet a year in personal growth. You couldn't get that out of logging. And what they're doing right now down on the Columbia River is cottonwood, of which only grows 10 feet a year. And they use the old Haley loggers to coppice the top 10 feet for paper. And the big markets in the future will be hemp as a virgin white paper. Mark my word.
And, just on the topic of hemp and cannabis in general, here in New Zealand, we've just had a election and we had a referendum or a vote for the people to decide whether or not we legalize cannabis. There's a whole bunch of bureaucracy.
They've already done that here, and now they've done it this election on psilocybin.
Right. Well, it's interesting because part of the there's been a lot of material coming up, propaganda from both sides supporting it and opposing it. And, we've already got medicinal cannabis here, but it's a very inaccessible. It's a CBD only thing. It's just, it's the pharmaceutical brand of it anyway. But what was interesting is that on one particular promotional video for advocating for pro-cannabis legalization so that people can grow their own is that they compared New Zealand to Oregon, because Oregon and New Zealand have very similar.
He called it elixir vitae, and
well, it's interesting
because when I need them,
because New Zealand and Oregon are both on similar latitudes. We both have similar populations, and we both have similar GDP, and so it was just curious because we're talking to you right now, and you guys have got it, and I mean, you got, it's interesting because. In Oregon, there's also a type of, I think it's chlorophyll. What the heck is it? There's a type of it's not spirulina, it's the other one.
We have a Phalaenopsis on Flos Aqua that grows off of Klamath Lake.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah.
What's the name of it?
It's not chlorella. It's a Phalaenopsis on Flos Aqua. And the reason it's superior, because they're all the same in terms of things, is that ours has neuropeptides because it's colonized with microshrimp and daphnia, and when it's freeze-dried, it's those neurotransmitter or neuropeptides that take the trace minerals across the blood-brain barrier. And when you do that, now you have a true smart food. So blue-green algae that have been freeze-dried off of Klamath Lake or any of the lakes up here in western Washington, Idaho, Montana, all the lakes have the blue-green algae on it. It's a freshwater algae. The trace minerals are all identically the same between spirulina and chlorella. It's just ours are colonized because they're in natural sources. They are not a true vegan drug. What they have is has micro shrimp, little micro shrimp, and Daphnia, another kind of organism that has peptides in it, polypeptides and neuropeptides.
Wow. So there you go, everybody. So, the guy knows
Now
what
you
he's
got
talking
the
about.
big secret. I did a study with Robert O. Becker, and this was done at Clinic 7 at the University of Washington. He's a Nobel Prize winner, and he found that when you take that drug and you have the trace minerals in your brain, if you can get the neural cavity to resonate correctly, you can create true nerve tissue rather than glial cell. And the way you do that is you have that chill going up your body, which is a light beam. And it turns out that chill is in the visible light band, white light. And if you get your skull right, it impinges on the pineal gland, which is light sensitive, and sets up a resonance in your neural cavity. And now your body generates true nerve tissue rather than glial cell. It takes about 4 to 5 months for that nerve tissue to go down the central nervous system all the way down to about the knee. I regenerated a severed knee trunk. What is that? This nerve down here. I had a severed perineal, and I had drop foot. My knee had been crushed against the brick wall, and my leg was rebuilt, but the nerve was severed. And it took 4.5 months to redo that, and now I have complete regeneration of nerve tissue. Anything in your body is replaceable with your mind's eye. That again is going to be part of Magic 101, where you take placebo from 10% and you move it out there to 60%. And what you think's going on is what is happening.
So this is a really important thing, and I'm glad you brought it up because, there's obviously we can use sort of substances and what nature provides, and also there's synthetic things. Personally, I'm an organic kind of guy, but, there's also like this ability
What's
where we
organic mean? You mean a predator doesn't eat it or what?
Okay. Well, I guess what I'm saying is that I if it grows out of the ground, it's a little more closer to my heart personally.
Listen, I've seen black mold come out of the ground. Get a grip.
Well, I'm talking about medicinal plant type things.
I'm just messing with you.
But that's okay. Like, personally, I'm on a bit of a hiatus from all those things because I'm looking to develop myself without sort of any external stimulus. I'm trying to develop my mind because I find that certain things will actually sort of muddy things up and I won't have the clarity that I.
Oh, that's your thoughts again, and why you have to be rigid.
Right, and so this is interesting because you mentioned before obviously the importance of meditation, and meditation's quite a big sort of umbrella term because it incorporates a lot of things. It's not really a specific thing. There's obviously clearing the mind, but there's almost like stages of development, and there's lots of different branches and ways you can go. And so you've been around, brother. You've done some stuff. You've been there, done that.
Naughty.
Now, and everyone's obviously going to find their own path up the mountain, so to speak. And, when I was talking about, when you boil down a lot of these religious spiritual traditions with all the extra sort of embellishments and dogmas and things to pretty them up, to keep certain priests and job security, when you boil things down, right, like what's a good sort of place for people to start who are looking to basically encourage mystical experience or create an environment conducive to mystical experience that doesn't involve stimulants?
The way I did it is I started a dialogue with my inner self by keeping a physical diary. And by having to write it, not computer type it and all of that, required me to go from right to left brain. So I kept a physical diary, daily diary. First thing I did when I got up in the morning is I entered my dream states, what I remembered, what I didn't remember, what got resolved, and problems I went to sleep with, etc. And what happens, it takes a few years, but what happens is you develop a shorthand of how your subconscious begins to dialogue with your dream state you call consciousness. And once you have that dialogue, inner dialogue, they call that self-realization, where you have access to the other 9/10 of yourself. That's only halfway to God, but it's a good ways further than where you are right now, where you have no clue who you are. And what each of us is different in the way we do it. I started with a daily diary, physical diary called the Magical Diary. That later became my TARDIS. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Part of the study I did with the military on time travel. There's your TARDIS as a metaphor. And just start doing your diary and being mindful. That's a very important word. Being mindful, keeping yourself on task. Just stay away, you bring it back in. It takes about 4 months to train your mind to go from something you want to do to where it becomes a habit, like going to the refrigerator or not going to the refrigerator. You've got to be active about it for 4 months, like you put a big sign, fatso only goes here, and you don't know. Well, you need to be active, mindful. And once you develop, it takes about 4 months where something that's not natural becomes a habit, and then you won't give it up. And that's when it starts to become a tool. Just like going to the bathroom regular, just like, having regular sex, having regular meals, eating at biological clocks. Your body sets up rhythms that allow health to occur more generally. And good health is different for each of us. What's healthy for you may not be for me. What you call organic may be, I don't know, creepy. Why would he want to?
I know what you mean. Yeah, we're going to have. There's connotations as opposed to denotations.
That's right, and there is always habitat. If you live in the Midwest, you eat grains. If you live on the coast, you eat fish. That's a metaphor that Gurdjieff stated, where you eat your environment. You try to adapt to the environment you're currently enjoying, where it might have more sun, has more rain, whatever. That each of us is different. Living in Alaska is quite different from the amount of light you get during the day as opposed to sunny California, or the cold you get with seasonal changes. And each of us is different, and you try to, become a cultivar, adapting to that environment and becoming in harmony with it. And that's why, for example, from a metaphor point of view, sustainable lifeboats are different down here than they are over there. They're not the same like Russia's doing with Anastasia, but they take into account the uniqueness of the environment and being in harmony with it, which is different. That's called sustainability as opposed to organic, which is more political. So, as a metaphor. Yeah, okay.
So this is really great. I think I'm teasing out some good stuff from you here. So what I wanted to do is just nudge you a little further, because you also have your own body of work. And for me, books like Power Tools for the 21st Century is such a wonderful reference. And I know it's an older book for you. It's been around for a long time. But however, for people who want a sort of a scholarly, erudite sort of, information-packed overview of a wide range of things, it introduces many concepts. One of those things is how you've laid the book out, even, using the trigrams and the hexagrams, using, a system. And you start, and this for me.
Like did Lieber, like he had book 7 in Lieber Vegas. He had a where it belongs in the hierarchy of my writings. That's right. Yeah.
Yep. So, and I just, and it's also like, you make a really important point here. And I think a lot of people who have their spiritual awakening can get swept up in the magic and the mysticism, but they're not keeping their feet on the ground. And part 1, obviously in section 1 of the book, you talk about cordyceps and transfer factor, but you also mentioned that to start off when you're building the temple worthy of spirit to indwell. You've got to make sure you've got some solid. You got to make sure you got some solid foundations. You got to work on the underside of the car.
Yeah, your body, your physical body, is a reflection of your spiritual body. The two are like a metaphor. If you want to see somebody like a medical doctor, what's wrong with a fat medical doctor? How good is his medicine?
Is he big boned or is he unhealthy?
Yeah, he's unhealthy if he's fat, right? And so, in fact, 1 in 4 people in Oregon now are not fat, they're obese. People aren't healthy. No wonder there's a pandemic.
And so when people haven't got their physicality right, because obviously, and I remember you watching a presentation you did where you talked about the rats that were exposed to certain things and they became depressed if they didn't get the right food or the sunshine. But I mean, if certain foods will affect your mood and they will affect your decision-making capabilities because food will affect your cognitive capacity. So I have a thing that I talk about with some of my clients and that where I say, and my friends, and say things like, well, there's probably a bunch of people out there that are in relationships that they want to work, but they aren't working. And it could be as simple that it could be their diet that could be impacting their relationship. It's as simple as that. They're eating adjustments. So they're eating crappy food, and they're like wondering why they don't have the same sort of wonderful relationship they had. And I think that's a big part. So I really enjoy when you talk about that, because obviously you do dirt farming and you've been an agricultural man as well. And and this is really literally about getting back to nature. And so when we talk Magick 101, especially for the kids, getting the kids straight out of the gate, I love that term, to get them get their fingers in the dirt, and they're going to be more likely to eat their vegetables if they have a personal relationship with watching them grow, rather than get fed them from a bag of frozen peas or something. Because if they can eat fresh stuff out of the garden, they're more likely to eat it off the plate if they know that they've had a part in playing with it, and growing it, having a relationship with it.
Small part of it. When a child can also see a tomato that he started up as a sprout in May and grew it all the way into February, where it's producing tomatoes in February and March, that child will never have a fear of food again. And the crisis we're about to experience with food shortages and so-called just-in-time delivery systems.
Yeah, and man, that's so important. Like, I know people here in New Zealand, like even my neighbor here, they've just built all these planter boxes, and they're going to start growing their own food. People are getting the hint now. They need to start sorting their own food out.
Big tree gardens. That's where you start.
So what realistically can people seek to, what percentage of, we're talking about just an overview here. What percentage of food do you think people can actually grow in their backyard if they're living on a quarter-acre section, regardless of the climate and the latitude?
The first thing that should be grown is your herbal pharmacy.
Okay.
That's who's messing everything up before medicine, before dentistry, before food. It's big pharma.
Have you got a book for this?
Well, not just vegetables. How about ibogaine that stops all forms of addiction, including spousal abuse and gambling, with one single use?
Doesn't that require medical, you've got to be guided through that? You can't just take it. You actually have to go through a clinical application, don't you?
Well, that particular one, yeah, because it's a near-death experience is what it is, basically. Yeah. But if you're on heroin, I watched this 14-year IV user off of Amsterdam going in for 30 hours of clinical. And at the end of that 30 hours, he had he didn't experience withdrawals. He had no desire to do heroin again. And while he was talking about it, he lit up a cigarette, doesn't smoke anymore. And that was 80% one use. The 20% do a second use, and that's 80%. So it's 80% of 80% on second use. It also is the worst experience of your life. And you have a high likelihood, if without a nurse nearby that's trained, you could die.
Yeah.
But that's called Bouidi of the Fang, comes out of Africa as stops all forms of addiction, not just site-selective molecules like heroin, morphine, and that kind of thing. Now, what I'm trying to tell you is there are plants out there that are for spirituality, like the Amanita muscaria, the soma. There are plants out there like aspen leaf and aspen bark, which is a natural source of acetylsalicylic acid, aspirin, with natural buffers in it. And when you eat the plant as a full spectrum antidote rather than targeted energies where you go in with tinctures to extract with either alcohol, water, or carbon dioxide or whatever solvent, where you're not going after targeted chemistries. That's old school with German. What you're doing is eating the plant as God put it out there in the universe in right manner, harmony, environment, because West Coast Oregon does not have golden seal, but its chemical analog is Oregon grapefruit. It has a little more hydrastine and a more berberine, and so, which is a precursor to hydrastine. And those kinds of things, like echinacea, has echinacea that change the turgor in your synovial fluids in your mouth that kill all kinds of viruses. You want to stop the covert virus, eat echinacea root. That takes care of that. Boom, just like that.
Just
Because
like that,
what
everyone.
that does,
Go and do your research.
Yeah, when you increase the turgor in your synovial fluids, it sets up electrostatic fields and reduces habitat where virus can set up. Doesn't have any place it can set. And so you can't get sick. So they're each, wherever there's a toxin in the woods, there's always an antidote that grows right next to it. Poison oak. Poison oak is awful. Oh. But bracken fern grows right next to it, and that's even better than, what is it, bisulfate with apple cider vinegar and baking soda. You usually use apple cider vinegar and baking soda to make a little smooth booze, but the bracken fern is even better. It will neutralize and you won't have a problem. Further, like COVID virus, if you took a small amount of toxin in the early spring, your body builds up and your mouth all puckers up and you get all messed up. By the end of summer, you have natural immunity. You can roll in poison oak and it won't bother you. You've built up your own antibodies. If your body is healthy, it is a better laboratory than anything out there. And that's why I call it herbal pharmacy. You start with your needs. If you have a bad heart and you need a heart drug, instead of using warfarin for a blood thinner, you could use, what is it that I use? I use a natural enzyme, chlotinase, from pharmaceutical mushrooms. Chaga and some of the others have chlotinase in it, which is a natural immunity. When I had both hips replaced in surgery, they wanted to put me on warfarin. I wouldn't do it. And so all the nurses watched me while I was eating mushroom, getting the chlotinase as a blood thinner. Now, that medical doctor and all their nursing staff uses chlotinase. They don't tell their clients that. They still put them on warfarin, but they themselves use chlotinase because it works better. That's the problem with medicine. And the first problem in the world is pharma. And that's your Monsanto and all the others that are doing pharmaceuticals. You get that part of your diet right for individual needs, that's the first thing you grow, is your herbal pharmacy. That's the first thing I had children grow with aquaponics. Then you do your salad bowl later and your vegetables and, minerals and how you get them. Just eating blue-green algae give you your trace minerals. your mineral 70. There are 72 trace minerals that you need. And if you had neuropeptides, not just polypeptides, but neuropeptides, now they go across the blood-brain barrier, and your brain can now do something with them.
Now
and
we're
so, just being aware of how you respond.
Hey, I've got some more questions here for you, Doc.
I'll bet. All right.
We've hit. Are you still good to talk for a bit longer?
What's that?
Are you still okay to talk for a bit longer?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we can go another. What is it? Another half hour? Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay. So,
yeah,
I've got someone asking a question. They're asking your opinion of Rudolf Steiner's work in agriculture.
That's one of the reasons I'm in agriculture. I'm different than Rudolf Steiner. He belonged to Zurich, where my great-grandfather was his lodge master before he started his own movement and different. I'm part of Waldorf, or Zurich, out of Zurich, where I mentor children. It's mostly children. Agriculture, in my humble opinion, is why the child goes to the sandbox right out of the gate. You start your foods first, your herbal pharmacy, your foods. Once you do that, then you do water. And with those two things, child is empowered. If that child knew how to find its own water, what I'm doing as another project I'm doing here, it'll be workbook 4. Workbook 4, yeah, aquaculture, workbook 4. I have workbook 3 out and I have workbook 5. Workbook 4 is a mobile water testing laboratory in a bus called the Caterpillar. And it's a mobile water testing laboratory run by 3rd graders, teaching 1st graders on how to do mobility, turbidity, cleanliness, how to clean water, and all of that as a mobile water testing laboratory. And what we're going to do is send it across the country and then film it being cloned in each community it stops at. And that will be workbook 4 that's not out. Workbook 5 is out right now, called stress management. Everybody needs that one, man. How to manage stress, because it's my contention that all disease and all sickness is because you have not managed stress correctly in your body. If you take care of stress, the body can cover itself in diet and other kinds of crap that you might be eating. Body is an incredible laboratory, and stress is a type of reaction in the way you relate to your body that causes you to get sick, as a way to tell you things aren't going right and you need to change your direction.
Is this like so like I'm a Reiki practitioner and teacher, and sometimes we'll talk about like a metaphysical sort of holistic approach to, like,
Right.
you've got a physical ailment as a manifestation. It's like something's knocking on the door emotionally and mentally,
That's how
and
they
then it
get your
finally shows
attention.
up
Yeah,
as a
that's how
physical
you can
problem.
look at it that way. Yeah, it's how your body communicates to consciousness,
Yeah.
this dream state. Hello, something's wrong. Hello, wakey, wakey. I love Crocodile Dundee.
Ah.
Wakey, wakey.
Okay, I got another question for you, Doc.
I bet.
Okay, what can you tell us? Like, so this is a big thing right now. So I walk around and I see bees on the ground, and somebody is asking, 777 is asking about the relationship between bees and 5G. Maybe the magnetic field's interrupting their ability to navigate.
5G is, what the 5G is doing is confusing the bumblebee with their navigation. They use that bandwidth to navigate, going back to the nest and where they've been. That's why they do the dance the way they do. And when you have 5G broadcasting, the bee, when it comes up over a hill and gets radiated, because it's a direct line, the bee gets confused and it's on the ground. 1. 2, the problem is same with ants. And if you think you're a superior species, how many ants are on your piece of property right now? And think in terms of group mind and who's terraforming the earth more on your piece of property as to who's superior. And page 3, real bees on the ground aren't bees. What they are is wasps are yellow jackets that live in the ground, and they're not bees, they're carnivorous entities that need to be eradicated. And the way you do that is with irrigation. All you have to do is flip with water, and that gets rid of the bees on the ground that aren't real bees, they're yellow jackets. By the way, I grew up in the northern part of Washington in a little town called Twisp. And Twisp is an Indian word for yellow jacket. And I know all about yellow jackets, man. They come out and they'll try to eat you. They're bad.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we got a few bits and pieces like that, right?
The difference between a bumblebee and a yellow jacket. Ugh.
Okay, so somebody's asked a question here about now you do talk about this usually in your interviews, but if you could give us a recap on LSD and what that is and how that affects the body, and why you can't take it the second day because your body needs to recoup and whatnot.
Well, I don't know about that part. I remember a time when I took 4 hits of orange sunshine and didn't even get off because I'd been eating too much of it. That was a long time ago in a faraway universe. Used to keep a little line up there on the bed. How much acid I took that day? Look, lysergic acid diethylamide, LSD, is a toxin, and when you take it, the brain freaks out and produces its own look-alike neurotransmitter called lysergic acid amide. And the LSD is usually always broken down within 40 minutes of ingestion and in the urine and gone. And the next 20 hours of reaction is your body's response to your own body chemistry. Now imagine, by the way, lysergic acid amide is not the one that talks to subtle bodies outside the physical body. What lysergic acid amide does is it connects dots, one dot to another, in the so-called aha. And here's the good news. Aha, or connecting dots, is arbitrary because it's the mind's eye and anything goes. That's why you have a responsibility for the thoughts you choose to entertain.
And right there, that's such an important point because we're talking about self-mastery here. And this is becoming the master and commander of your ship. I know that's a phrase that you use. And
Captain and commander.
Yeah, that's it. And this is so important because if you, it's like this. Your mind wants to learn, and if you're not the one teaching it, it's going to get taught by other things. Other people are going to be teaching it, and so becoming more aware and learning about how you're.
Which one is you inside you, and which one is not you. That's the purpose of the magic circle or circle of protection or banishing ritual. They got all kinds of names for it throughout history. Donald Duck, Walt, Mickey Mouse, Sorcerer's Apprentice. That's the whole deal. Drawing that circle. Yep. Everything inside that circle is May. Everything outside that circle is not May.
And that's important to know. This is this apophatic way of thinking, this via negativa, or retroductive thought process where we separate what is by what is not. And part of how we can figure out what something is by removing what it is not, by negation, by removing it so we get closer to it. And this is this internal process that we go through. And, you're talking about the dream world before. And, I do a lot of dream work. I'm quite a few years in. I've done a lot of study on it. And it's a wonderful thing. And there's ways you can play with it. It's such a wonderful playground. And one thing that you bring up regularly is the importance of building up your system of correspondences, because the dream world doesn't talk in literal language all the time. But if you have a symbolic language lexicon or library that you build up, you'll start getting your dream creator will start talking to you in symbols. And if you're building a bridge, a language bridge, and a symbolic sort of language bridge, by learning lots of building up your system of correspondences, associations. So when you dream about a red fire hydrant that has got a whatever around it, you know what that means, because that, the red means something, the fire hydrant means something.
In the series Dune, Frank Herbert wrote about the Bene Gesserit, and what made them superior was that they functioned on an emotional level. Now, the physical plane is one thing. The emotional plane is how you feel about the physical plane. In other words, it's more detail about the physical plane and why your dreams and all your other dialogues with your higher self are always about feelings, not things. And so to have a dream book that talks about an elephant flying around with its wings, and then there was a stork, you know, as objects, and what does that object mean in a dream, is crazy. What's real is how you feel about it, and what you're trying to do is form a dialogue between things and feelings. And that's what your diary is truly about. Forming that metaphor, going from things that happened to me to how I feel about it. And the feeling part is where you have higher intellect. That's why it's a physical, emotional. Intellectual, that's you know, like basic form, the distinction between a couch and a chair. And then you have the one above that, which is the archetypal plane, where I am you and you are me and I am the walrus. Then you have 4 more planes.
Yeah. So that's important because, you know, as part of dream work, you write the information down objectively, and then you go through the process. And you know, you're right.
That's why they say lucid dreaming has more content to reality than even consciousness. And that's
lucid dreaming is amazing. Yeah. But
you know, you have more access because it's a higher level of feelings are the higher level of the physical. It's more information, like a fractal, going like with using a generator like a Middlebrot or a Julia or a May pattern or something. You can go from the physical to the next level of how you feel about the physical. More information. It's the resolution of information. That's a holographic system of reality. By the way, just so we don't get too caught up in that, holographic systems aren't any more efficient than quantum systems with indeterminacy. In a quantum system, the limitation is that the more you know about one thing, the less you know about something else. You have a trade-off there, and you can't get there from here. In a holographic system, there's a theorem that states that if you have enough information to ask a coherent question, you have enough information to answer it. That means the answer is in the framework of the question itself, which means information is not what you think it is any more than space or time. And once you understand those limitations, now you get the place where man belongs in the food chain hierarchy of resonant cavity oscillators out there with orca, dolphin, pilot whale, manatee. I mean, there's a whole bunch of mammals that are further down than man is in this food chain. Elephants. I saw an elephant in Cambodia paint itself, you know, using a trunk. And that mammal depicted an awareness of self that I don't have. And dogs, smaller brain cases, we love our dogs. Why? Because they're closer to spirit. And spirit is purpose. Yeah, that's the distinction from coming from a place of wounding or why you chose to be here in this crazy movie at the first place. And when you move toward purpose, you're not as observable by an AI. The algorithms don't work as well in terms of control, because working from a place of wounding, I can predict what you're going to do way before you do. That's what an AI does. But when you're doing your true will, as Crowley would have said, none shall say nay. You're not in conflict with anything, which means you're essentially unobservable as a metaphor.
We're just about at the top of the hour here, and I've got one more question, and then we'll start.
Good. By the way, thank you for having me, Phil. What I'm hoping is that what you and I talked about earlier prior to this, you consider it, you make me a presentation, and we do that because I would love to make a bunch of videos with you on things like cavitation, where the whole subject is on the nature of time travel and true nature of cavitation.
Well, I tell you what, once the broadcast is finished at the top of the hour, we could, if you've got a bit of time, we can have a quick chat afterwards as well. Because
I can't. You got that first off. I've got a bunch of people back here waiting for me to get offline. So
okay. Yeah, no worries.
We can do it tomorrow.
Yeah, we catch up another time.
Tomorrow. And I want you to sleep on it anyway. I want you to really think about what you want to do. Really.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Do your Ouija board, whatever you do. Throw your cards. Throw the bones.
Throw the bones. Okay, so I've got one more question for you, Doc, and then we'll do a bit of a promo for your website and your books. But somebody here is asking a question close to my heart, and that is like, the question is how many might be needed to focus to affect the morphogenetic field, the collective consciousness, to awaken the human race to the truth of what's going on now? What can we do to contribute towards sort of the raising of the awareness? What's the individual thing that we can do to help, people become more aware? I mean, obviously sharing information is an obvious one, but
correct answer is yes. You already done it because you're already thinking about it.
Perfect.
Each of us has to get off the couch, has nothing to do with time. Thank you.
That's it, getting off the couch. Okay, so thank you everyone for all the comments. Sorry guys, we'll do another show, and we'll have some more question and answers. There were lots of question and answers that we didn't get to. Sorry, questions we didn't get to. But I was going to say we definitely want to encourage people to go to your website, Rick, because you've got so many books, so much information there. Buy Rick's books, guys.
That's my only source of income. The thing is, right now I've been hacked, and so my email from richardalanmiller.com does not work, and I'm going to fix it, but stay tuned on that because of Google and YouTube are out after me, like Facebook. So if you want to talk to me, I'm at nwbotanicals.org. And
hang on, I'll put that up. nwbotanicals. Sorry.
I'm Rick at that. Yeah, Rick.
I'll put that up on the screen. So people are welcome to, because I know that you could attract all sorts of interesting people, but you're happy to.
What I need now is somebody that's another person on my shopping list. I need somebody to screen my emails, and the ones I can answer and the ones that are simple to answer. Someone else does it, because I'm getting 400 email a day, and I'm overwhelmed. And just taking a couple of days off for a moment, I was still going to try to respond to them. Microsoft sabotaged both of my laptops with intent. I discourage you against Microsoft as being part of a conspiracy against humanity. In my humble opinion, they deserve to be called out. And with their so-called cloud 365, that's a bunch of BS, and they know it.
They know it. They're trying to trap people into regular. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Well, they should be ashamed of themselves.
They know exactly what they're doing.
Helping us, not fighting us, trying to control us. They asked me, I couldn't open their stuff I bought. Oh, send us your passwords. We'll open it up for you. We'll put it on the cloud for you. No.
So what is the best way for people to like buy your books? Is the website still a reliable way?
Yeah. The website itself. Buy the book. If you're out of the country, like New Zealand, that's another thing that's broken that's going to be fixed shortly. But you write to me, and we'll use PayPal.
Perfect.
Okay.
Well,
if you're overseas, you can't order off my website. You write to me, and I'll put a quote together. Some guy wanted to buy $480 worth of books, and he's paying $400 for it. I'll give him discounts. When they want to buy that much, you betcha. I'm good to go.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Well, okay. Well,
Thank you, by the way, for supporting my works. All of you that do, thank you. Thank you.
That's so cool, man. Well, this has been a really great conversation, and I think we teased a lot of good stuff out of the doc. He's got such a wealth there, and we've got to kind of give him a bit of a probe to sometimes.
Pride, but cattle prides. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Cool. So I just want to say a big thank you to everyone for tuning in and supporting both of us. And you know, if you would like to make a donation to the to the show here, the details there via PayPal. Please go to Rick's site and buy his books direct. He signs them. He will send them to you. Or you can get the ebooks online, so you can click and you can get them straight away. He's got lots of a download library. He's got courses. He's even got there's some Vimeo courses there where you can supplement. Say if you've got what's that book? The inducing the induction ESP induction through forms of self hypnosis. He's got a Vimeo course to sort of supplement that, so you can have almost like a bit of one-on-one where he breaks things down a little further. There's so much on there, guys. Look, your mind is capable of far more than what you have been taught to believe. And Rick is a really great entry point for exploring all of these things he's had firsthand. And I just want to say, too, that yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, the amazing Randy passed away.
Oh.
And yeah. And so, you know, obviously he was someone who was very interesting in regards to the kind of work that you did, because he was obviously trying to basically debunk it all, but he also helped to refine the method.
Laser man, sleight of hand, but this one's going in your pocket like Harry. Harry in your pocket. That's a good movie to watch. Well, Harry in your pocket. It took place in Seattle, Washington, where I grew up. And let me tell you, man, it's a great movie. Harry in your pocket. Sleight of hand. Different than sleight of mind.
That's it. And I mean, for anyone that, you know, we can give Randy a lot of crap for some of the attacks and things he did, but he did help to refine the parapsychological research process as well, so we can start you know, keeping things honest, because there's stuff out there. But anyway, guys, I want to say a big thank you to everyone. Yeah, and if I didn't believe it, I wouldn't have seen it. Great quote from Doc Ram. So have you got a last quote for us, Doc, before you head off?
Yeah. Anything not specifically forbidden is mandatory. That's Merlin.
Perfect. All right, brother. Thank you so much. Everyone out there, have a beautiful weekend, and we'll no doubt see you all again very soon to talk some more. Thank you so much.
You take care. I'm going to go now.
Cool. All right, then. See you guys. See you, Doc. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, nice talking with you. Bye-bye.
I'll be in touch. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Yeah, I don't know. What an epic convo. I'll be back in the next bunch of days. I've got some other guests lined up next week. I'll probably start doing some of my own monologues too. I've got some things I'd like to share, and yeah, we'll just sort of see what goes from there. But yes, please, I really appreciate all the encouragement via comments and emails, and the donations are really helpful too. Helps me upgrade. I've just got a new light thing so you can see my face a bit better. Things like that to help enhance the quality of the production of the show. Thank you so much. And yeah, and thank you for everyone joining in on the live chat too, because I have to say that this interactivity, it's bringing real community. You know, we've all got lots of questions. We got good quality people in the chat asking real questions, and we can't get to all of them, but I try to get to them. So thank you so much. See you next time.